Hello, everybody. My name is Ken Masson. I am the president of the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy, and we're. Unfortunately, our host today, Dr. Rimpey, who's a club honorary member, had some technical difficulties, so she wasn't able to be here today. But I'm a sad substitute for her, but we'll try our best and get through this. It's my pleasure to actually have Danielo Souza with us today from Brazil. And Danielo is he's a member of the club and a charter member of the club. You've been around for 4 years with me, you and I together. So we've known each other for a while. And we've got a super interesting subject today, talking about accessible disability, no, accessible digital accessibility. I got it. Okay, so Danielo, let's start. First, let me say that Danielo is from Brazil. His language is Portuguese, so his first language. So his second or third language, I'm not sure which, Danielo, is English. So just so you understand that, so sometimes he may need a translator. So we'll walk through that. Danielo, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Ken, and thank you all for inviting me to here today. Ken, before we follow, Angie sent a comment on YouTube. She needs the caption to follow our transmission.
Yeah, once again, this is going through StreamYard. Depends if she's on YouTube. I'm not sure how that works, but I know that on the Facebook it does give the closed captions, so you may go over and see it on that. So that's where you can find it. I'm not sure also on LinkedIn if it's showing the closed caption. It's a good question, and I think we should definitely look into it. And if it doesn't work on those other two, I will get in touch with StreamYard and see what they have to say. So, Mr. Danilo, who are you?
Hello, everyone. I am Danilo. I am from Brazil. I work with digital accessibility science to 2016, 18, something like that. And I am a visual impaired person. I can't see. Can just a moment. I think Angie is not.
I'm not sure why you're hearing me, so I'm not sure why she's hearing me. Not hearing me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can continue, Daniel.
Yeah, I can continue. So I am, as Ken said, I am here in our club science, the start of the club, and I am so happy to be here today. I worked for some years on the projects, and today I am working specifically on digital accessibility. That is the main subject on this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I work for Brazilian government. I work as digital accessibility director on the São Paulo. Just a moment to check how to say City Hall. Just to English is not my first language, so if I forgot some word in English or if my pronunciation was in a different way, you can just say, and I try to say in another way. But I work on the City Hall of São Paulo, that is the biggest city in Brazil. And I work specifically with digital accessibility. And at this moment, We are in the process of discuss digital accessibility in our club in on Rotary, and because of that, we are here talking about this subject. I am
Okay.
married. I have a son, and I think it's that.
Okay. Very good. Hopefully you can hear me now, Angie, because I was able to adjust the volume up. It was on automatic adjustment, so I turned it up to manual. Um, so let's see. So you have a visual disability, correct? Yeah, I think you may have mentioned that.
Yeah.
And how has that influenced the way you approach accessibility advocacy and policy making?
Um, I think before I was an advocate for digital accessibility, I lived based on I thought this because when I born I have a normal vision to say in these words, and I lost the vision along the time, and I used some tools and some technologies to help me to study and to build the internet. That's is the first steps on the internet, and I used it a lot to be online and to to know things. And after some years, I noted this movement of talking more about accessibility and talking more about this kind of tool. And I started to work with this, and I started to advocate about this. Uh, I work a lot on the education aligned to this kind of technologies. I write some articles and other materials based on this. And my main advocated, um, I don't know how to say this, but the space where I more tried to turn it accessible was on the education. So digital accessibility applied on education's institutions and contexts, because I understand I am a part of this movement and I could access these spaces, but a lot of persons could not do that because they don't have the tools or don't have the knowledge. So it is extremely aligned with my life, with the things I need to do to to understand how to be on the world as a visual impaired person.
Okay, great. So let's go back to basics here, and if you can kind of define what is digital accessibility in simple terms.
Okay. So when we talk about digital accessibility, we need to understand that the internet and the digital places like apps and websites, they are as a public place. So this kind of discussion have something like 50 years, and is based on the, just a moment, it is based to the to give the persons with disability the right to access this kind of public places. So with the internet and the advance of the technology, we started to discuss about this kind of access on the internet and online places. because the internet was a way to turn the things accessible. Like I am here in Brazil, and you are not here. You are talking, so this is a way to turn the things together. And the digital accessibility gives the possibility to persons with disability to stay in these places using the tools they have to stay on these places, like screen readers, like magnifiers, like the navigation using just the keyboard, because we have a lot of different ways to stay in these spaces. And we have some problems with this because a lot of these public places on the internet was not able to receive us. So the digital accessibility is think and make the things in the way everyone can access these spaces. It makes
And
sense?
yeah, it makes sense. And there's multiple things they can do. It's a big topic, I know, because we're working on some stuff, and there's whole sorts of how long is that document? All the rules that are there to make your digital stuff accessible.
Yeah.
It's multiple pages of stuff, correct?
Yes, we have a lot of ways to do that, and we have a lot of things to uh, uh, I don't know if things is the best way, but we need to work with a lot of resources to turn this real. And it's important we follow the guidelines and the documents we have that is based on how this kind of technology works. And because of that, it's a technical space to talk, but the impact of this kind of subject, it's bigger, much bigger than the technical talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and in my limited experience on this, but as we look around the world and try to locate designers that are using it, it seems like it's a small percentage of the designers out there that are using it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know part of the problem is the designer wants something to look good, look really, really sexy, but and and to make it accessible is not necessary. Counters what they have been taught all their career. So it's a challenge for them, but it's important challenge.
yeah.
It's an important challenge.
Uh,
Okay.
just just so you know, we have some numbers. We have an estimated number that says something like 3 or 4% of the websites on the internet are considered accessible.
Mm,
So
okay.
it's a really big problem.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk about the designers and the technical persons who today works with that, the main problem is not just uh, the way they are doing the things, but it's because most of them was not don't have this kind of contact and don't know the website they are doing are not accessible. In my experience, I know a lot of persons who really intends to do some accessible space on the internet, but don't know how to do that.
Hmm.
So I think we have an education problem.
Hmm.
The education on this kind of technical courses, the university. We need to bring this kind of knowledge and put one where the designers and the web designers and the developers are, because they just don't know about this.
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. It's a long way to go. There's a long way to go. So let's talk about Brazil because you're most familiar with Brazil.
Okay.
And can you tell me what is the how is digital accessibility currently being addressed in Brazil, both on a governmental level and a public service level?
So about this subject on Brazil, we have a long history. We are as state, like yes, like state, we are signed with the UN convention, with the status of a law in Brazil, and after that we have some laws based on this, but this it follows in small steps for years. And then on the last years after the pandemic, we have some advances on this subject. Almost of the states or locations who works with digital accessibility use the web guidelines accessibility as the way to follow. That is called in Portuguese. I don't know how to pronunciate it in English, but we call them WCAG. It's WCAG,
Mhm.
and we are on the 2.2 version, and this is the conjunct of orientations the world follows today when we are talking about digital accessibility. And on Brazil, we have, based on these guidelines, a recent normalization that is a document, a Brazilian document that translate and adapt this kind of guidelines to Brazilian context. And it is referenced on the last laws we have that talk about digital accessibility. So, thinking in digital accessibility on the world, Brazil is one step on the vanguard of this movement, because we have now a Brazilian document who give us this kind of guidelines. And I work with these guidelines. My work is applying this kind of guidelines on the public services of Brazilian government. So the the office I work on the City Hall of São Paulo is the reference on the Brazil for this issue. So we receive requisitions to make some manifestations and some, I don't know how to say in English, just a
Mhm.
moment,
Okay.
some reports of the digital accessibility on the government Brazilian services on digital places. Like we have a website of the Brazilian federal government, and we have a lot of services for the population, and we work with them to turn these spaces accessible based on this normative that we have in Brazil. And this office on where I work is the technical group who gives some advices on this issue. And on this public service, we are working on that. And the private part on the companies, we have a service that the governments offer to them, that is the, we call this like a certificate of digital accessibility.
Hmm.
And we work with the companies to turn these spaces online accessible.
Hmm.
We have a lot of companies working with, and we turn the online spaces accessible for the public and for the company. So we help them to apply these guidelines on the day by day of the companies.
Hmm.
So we work on these two ways, but we are on the first steps of this movement. To be honest, we have a lot of work to do yet.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, they are guidelines.
Yeah.
They're not laws. They're guidelines. Is that correct?
Yes. At this moment, this is guidelines, but
Okay.
we have a law that is from 2015. That is a general law that talks about the rights of the persons with disability on Brazil. And this big law have one article who talks specifically about digital accessibility.
Hmm.
And this normalization that I said, that is guidelines, was published on March of this year. And at this moment, we are working to have a law based on this normalization and the article of the other law to turn these guidelines with the power of a law.
Hmm. Okay.
So we are in this moment of the history on Brazil.
So, and I'm going to say something that I'm not qualified to say, but it sounds to me like Brazil is very progressive on this as far as other countries in the world. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I feel that.
And there probably are many, many, many countries in the world that don't have anything like this. Um,
We have a lot of countries that don't have nothing, and we have some countries who have something. But I don't know. May it has, but I don't know some other country who has this discussion on the same point of Brazil. I was recently on Korea for a kind of formation with the government of Korea, South Korea, and we have the contact with a lot of systems and different technologies they use there. But the discussion about digital accessibility there are something like 4 or 5 years uh, before we are on the discussions we have today. They don't have yet. It's the point.
okay.
And this is like one of the most technological uh, countries on the world.
Uh, and God bless Brazil. You know,
Yeah.
hopefully you will serve as an example for many countries to look at and say, yeah, we should be doing this. Um, and if Angie were on with this, she can answer this. But I think when they created the ADA in the United States, because I'm once again talking into an area I'm not qualified to, uh, digital accessibility was not even in their mind at that point when they created it. I think there's some wording in there that can be interpreted, but
Yeah, but I have some I do some course and some I am invited to talk about this subject in some universities on Brazil, and I use ADA as a word point of start of the discussion, because the ADA don't talk specifically about digital accessibility, but this is important because they put on the discussion on the word the subject of persons with disability.
mhm,
So it's important. We don't have any specific definition on the ADA, but we have rights. And after that, on the United States law, you have some discussions about the internet be a public place. So
okay.
the first steps of this movement is based on the ADA.
Uh, yes, and Angie has answered here in the chat. She says we don't have the same power of law in the United States per the ADA law. Can you give me examples of what is the digital accessibility? I know it's got to do with the typeface, it's got to do with the colors, that kind of stuff. Can you give me some examples?
You froze for a second, and then
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm looking for maybe some examples of what is digital accessibility. I was saying typefaces, colors, things like that. Can you give some examples?
okay. Some easy examples to don't talk about HTML or something like that. We can talk about colors. We have a minimum height of contrast between the elements. And when we don't follow this kind of uh, guideline or recommendation, we can don't attend persons who have low vision and persons who have different perceptions of colors. Um, we need to check the website and guarantee they are compatible with screen readers. Screen readers is the kind of software blind and low vision, some low vision persons use to that is based on TTS, that is text to speech mechanisms. And to this kind of software work properly, they need to find the text to turn it in a speech. And when we have, for example, some images where you write something on the photo, on the image, may the most of the screen readers will not catch this information because they will work with the image and not with the text on the image. So we need to have this kind of vision and turn alternative text or separate the images of the content to don't have this kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to say one thing that may is different for you than for us. In Brazil, we is not common. The most of the persons have iOS devices or Apple devices. And Apple has a technology that is called OCR that recognize the text on images. So if the persons who may are following us use some Apple systems, may they say, for me it works. I have an image and I can read that with my screen reader.
Hmm.
And it's true in the most of the case. In some cases, it don't really work. But in Brazil, we have not a lot of persons who use this kind of device. So we use some other technologies that are, I don't know how to say, more cheaper. Technologies that are more cheaper and who attend more persons. And this kind of technology don't will work properly with this kind of imagery or recognizing the content or some things like that.
I,
Uh,
I think there's like a tool. I don't know how you think about those things that you can put on your website and you can click on different things. And I mean, are you in favor of that or not?
so exists a big discussion about this kind of tool. We call them the accessibility tool. And this kind of tool is they work as a plugin who is based in the most of the cases in JavaScript, that is a language of development. And this kind of plugin can help some persons in some moments or some actions. We cannot just use this kind of tool and say my website is accessible, because they can give the person some resources, but they will not resolve structural problems. So they can be used with the guidelines, but they are not a way to don't use the guidelines. We really need to have a, a code of the website structure. We need to have alternative text to the image. We need to have the correct colors or the rate of contrast in the minimum uh, aspect. If we do what we need to do following the guidelines, this kind of tool will give the user more ways to use this website. But we cannot just give you a website that is not aligned with the guidelines and expect the tools, the plugins will do the job, because they will not do the job, you know.
Yeah.
And it's important we have this kind of conversation, because a lot of persons who don't understand about the subject think the plugins and will help them and do all the job. It's important to say don't will, but you can use it, and it will help some persons.
Absolutely, and I know some of them are free, so there's no cost to them. So, and that's tempting to a lot of people to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting back on a global level here, so where's the United Nations on this? Do they have guidelines on digital accessibility?
They have a they have a conjunct of guidelines that works aligned with the guidelines I said before, that is maintained by W3C. Just let me check the name of the guideline they follow, because they have one, and they have some specifically tools and who help us. We have an important tool on Portugal that is based on this. these guidelines. Just a moment.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, I'm going to give a little plug to the club. I'll let you give you a few minutes to do that. We are the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy. We have been around for about 4 years now, and we have grown to the point that we are in more than 30 countries in the world. We have more than 60 members in the club. I think it's pretty safe to say we're the most diverse club in Rotary, and we work on focusing on the human rights of people with disabilities on a global level. And if anybody is interested in joining the club, I just put up the website, the email site there, email address. So you could write to us and tell us that you're interested in doing be involved in some of the work that we're doing, and we certainly highly welcome you to do so. And like I said before, Danielo has been a member for 4 years, and he's our accessibility chair right now. And Danielo, have you found that information?
Yeah. On they have one thing. I don't know if in English is the same name, but they call it's like EU Directive 2016. That is similar to our norm, to our structure, but they have a different administrative structure. But they have a law that talks about digital accessibility. But one problem when we compare this to laws, it's because they are much more focused on the public services. And we in Brazil, we are talking not just about the public services of the government services, but too we talk about the company services. So it's the main difference. But they have a law that talk about digital accessibility, and based on this law and to attend this law, the members of the Europe have budget to study and to develop some tools focused on digital accessibility. So
Okay.
I don't know how is today in United States, but may they are in front in this
Okay.
discussion.
Okay. So we're down to about 5 to 10 minutes left here. Let's go on a couple of topics, and the one I think we touched upon. But are you finding resistance?
Yeah.
And,
So
and again, why is that? Why is the resistance?
in the most of the time, the persons don't have time to think about us. This is the truth. We have today a lot of platforms, digital platforms, who make websites and make applications to Android and iOS. And the most of them use a low code or a no code way to do these web spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And we have today a lot of persons who work with this and who work based on this kind of platform. And when we say that the platform was not the structure of the websites and the result of the content they make will not be accessible, they just say, but it's the platform problem, not my problem,
Mm-hmm.
because I am using the platform as I can use this.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this kind of problem, we have, with the persons that I know, obvious, we have two big groups. One of them wants to be more accessible, but don't know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one just don't mind about this.
Mm-hmm.
Will falling the way they are, because in some points I understood the point of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, if you are a freelancer and we need to make 5 websites in a month to have your money, and if I say to them, hey, you will not be able to do a website in 3 days
Right.
because you need to think about much more things on this web space, they just will say, but I cannot do that.
Right.
I need to develop and deliver this project. So because of that, we need to expand this kind of discussion to the persons who are contracting them.
Mm-hmm.
The importance to be accessible to the persons who will work with them, and much more than this. When you have a website that is accessible, they are more, they have a better classification on Google search, on SEO of Google, because the informations are easier to this kind of technology found then.
Mm-hmm.
So when the persons have a website accessible, they will help persons and they will help the business, will help what whatever they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important everyone in this main know about the subject and the importance of the subject. But we have some points of discussion who may we don't will solve before we have a law that turn these guidelines in things they need to do. Because when it's just a recommendation, a lot of persons will not do.
And that would be a fantastic final question, but I have one more for you. We should have ended with that question. Um, here's one more though. Digital accessibility, is it just for people with disabilities?
No. No, it's not just for people with disabilities. Like I said, it helps in the most of the case will helps the business of the person who are talking or making digital content accessible, but it will helps. Uh, we need to be more technical. We have a lot of kinds of disabilities. We have, in my case, I am a person who born with a disability, so it's my life. But the most of the persons who, when get some, I don't know how to say it in English. Just a moment.
Okay.
When they get older, they will
Like
need
me.
this
Like
kind.
me.
They will need this kind of resources. Like if you use uh, a biggest font for the text you are seeing on your cell phone, it's
Mm-hmm.
not different than me
Mm-hmm.
because I need to a bigger. font to read this.
Yes.
So the public is different, but the resource is the same one.
Yeah. Exactly. And I
So
know from talk about subtitles. Um, for me, I have ADHD, so my attention is not the best. If I had the subtitles on, closed caption, whatever you want to call them, and I'm hearing the person, I have double things to focus on, so it keeps my attention better on that kind of
yeah,
stuff too. Yeah.
it it can help persons who are autists, who have, I don't know if TDA age. I don't know if
ADHD, right? You talking about?
yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah. It does help me
in
a lot. Helps me a
it
lot.
helps a lot. It helps older persons. It helps when we have, for example, when you are in a website who have some articles like news, when you have a news portal and you have the option of reading here this news, you will help a lot of persons,
Yeah.
not just the me who will not read, I will her here, but
Hmm.
you help a lot of persons.
Hmm.
So this kind of resources make the web more accessible for everyone,
Right.
but
Exactly.
may not today,
Yeah.
but tomorrow will help these
Yeah.
persons.
And just so everybody knows, because I know Angie was helping us try to make sure the closed the I don't know whether it's closed caption or subtitled. I think it's subtitled, so it's not closed caption or something else. Um, Working, and what I normally do with this is I'll take this recording and I will put it on. I put it on YouTube, and at that point we add subtitles from many different countries. So it will be available hopefully within the next week or so on YouTube with all the subtitles on it. But I'll get in touch with StreamYard and ask him about it. So much appreciated, Danielo. I do much appreciate it. Would you prefer if anybody wants to get in touch with you, the right to the club, or do you have some other way of them getting in touch with you?
They can write me on the email.
On
You
on the club email or your own?
on my own.
Okay,
It's a
what is
problem.
that? What is that, Daniela?
Is I send you by chat for
If you can do it in the chat here, or when I repost it on YouTube, I'll put your email in there
okay.
too. Yeah, because there
It's
might be somebody that wants to talk.
Souza.Danilo live.com.
Okay, sounds
And
good.
if the persons have some kind of doubt or understand that I can help in some way to talking about digital accessibility, I will try to find a space on my schedules to talk about and to help the persons.
Okay.
It's because of that we are on Rotary.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe sometime in the future we should do a webinar on the subject itself. Maybe some education on it. It can't be taught in an hour, but maybe touch about the surface. Okay, Daniela, much appreciate you being here today and taking the time out of your busy day to be with us. And I hope somebody gained something from this. I'm sure they did. Maybe at very least they'll go to the government and say, "How come we don't have guidelines?" Yeah, I hope so. So thank you very much. Much appreciated. Once again, we're the Rotary Club World Disability Advocacy. You can write to us at RotaryWDA@gmail.com. Okay, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you again in a few weeks. Take care.
Bye bye.